if a person doesn't want to live in our cities, you can live on your own, but if your building catches fire, you don't get any protection from us.
I just wanted to expand a little bit on that first city. Ideally, how we see it, if we can do it this way, is the first city is a research center where we'd be planning the automated systems for the next city. And it would be a place where people could also come and go and work on things. But the people there would be doing as much as they can to get this information out to the general public. We'd be making books and videos and movies and gaming and everything that we can do to disseminate the information, so we're not just a closed city and living well, you know what I mean? It would be a city that would design for the Venus Project to perpetuate itself elsewhere.
No, if we build one city and we invite Russia, France, and England to come and live as guests, see if they like it. If they like it, build 3 in your country, 3, and then over gradually more and more. You can't start with a whole new world. You have to work your way up. Every move you make toward human betterment, someone will hate you. No matter what idea you've got, there's always some group that will hate you. Do you understand that?
And the more
So
well-known, yes.
that will be, during the transition, a major problem. But we have to go through that. I may get shot, you might get shot. Yeah, what we have to do is train people to understand that violence begets violence. So what we are trained in the Venus Project is to study people that come in, and if somebody looks suspicious, to prevent them from hurting other people. But we don't kill. We don't fight again. Otherwise, you're going to have policemen, the same trouble over again. Yes.
Are there any specific plans in building a new education system from scratch that will support the Venus Project? Are there any projects active at this time? Ongoing?
Not really. I would say mainly our books and videos, because that's a new educational system. Everything we're doing now is to educate people as to what the society is like, how it superimposes values. It's just a new value system entirely. Everything that Peter's doing, all the questions and answers.
I suppose it should be a priority in building this system, to educate people, right?
I'll tell you.
What books will they read? What kind of sciences they will...
Okay. People come to me in Venus, Florida, and they say, I love the Venus Project, I'd like to help. I said, how would you stop elevators from falling? Well, we need that problem. How would you prevent cars from hitting each other? Guy says, I don't know. Then go study mechanical engineering so you can help. But if you say, I've come to help, I ask you, what can you do? Can you prevent buildings from burning? What do you suggest? How would you purify contaminated water? Do you know how to grow food in the ocean? Something new. He says, no, study oceanography. We tell you, but people say, I've come to help. I never met anybody that knew how to help. You know, they say, I've come to help. And I said, well, can you teach children not to fight with each other? No. Do you know what makes a criminal? No. Do you know what makes some people aggressive and angry fast? No. Now how can you help? So you have to study group behavior, individual behavior, and you would be in the behavioral sciences where you work with kids. He's in the teaching aspect where he teaches kids. You're in the area, notice when kids violate their teaching. If they violate their teaching, it means our methods are wrong. Not the kid isn't bad. The kids come from different environments. Some kids are ready to punch somebody, you know. Other kids pinch other kids. Some kids are bullies. They torture other kids. So that's the world you start with. The world we work on is when the kids are very young. I don't know if I told you this, there's a lot of lakes in the cities. And there are hills in the middle of the lake, like an island. On top of the hill is a craft shop. So instead of telling kids to do exercise, they have to row a boat to get to the island. To get to the craft shop, you gotta climb a hill. So in so doing, they get exercise. Now, when they get up to the top of the island, We say, how many of you would like to build a little automobile? Well, most of the hands go up. So 4 kids have to lift up the car while others put the wheel on. It won't work unless 4 kids lift up the car. So we don't say, we want you to cooperate. It won't go together unless you lift it up. You understand? So when they finish the kid, each kid gets a chance to ride it around, a little track. Now, it'll work for you for 5 minutes, then it'll turn off. So if another kid is in, they say, well, it isn't 5 minutes yet, you want to ride it more. But it cuts out after 5 minutes by timing. So he knows it's time for you. And he rides it for 5 minutes. But if you leave it up to the kid, they say, it isn't 5 minutes, I've only been 3 minutes. They argue. So we use technology for that. We don't order kids to do exercise. We don't order anybody to do anything. We say, what do you want to do? He says, well, I like to study why lightning creates forest fires. Then he studies that, and I say, have you come up with anything? He says, not yet, but I'm learning.
Oh, he's asking if we've ever proposed it to government officials.
No, government officials are, I want to tell you, Vice President Humphrey in the United States, under the Johnson administration, came to my lab, and he said, this is what he said, you're a smart guy, John. Can you make something to make President Johnson look good? He wanted me to write 15, 20 pages. I said, the public is against the Vietnam War. I can't write anything to make Johnson look good, but I can write something to make America look better than it looks. So he said, go ahead. And I wrote it, and he gave it to President Johnson. And President Johnson and Humphrey called me a month later. He said, do you mind if I change the name? I called it Project Americana, to make America better. And he said, do you mind if I change the name? I said, I don't care what you call it, as long as you do it. So I said, I'm going to call it the Great Society. So he changed the name of Great, and he left out all the social stuff. So I called him on the phone. I said, why did you leave out the social stuff? He said, Jock, I can't talk to you on the phone, I'm vice president. So he says, come to Washington and I'll send you tickets. He sent me tickets, and I had dinner with him. Then after dinner, he said, the Democratic Party, this is Humphrey, are grooming me, Humphrey, for president. He says, when I get in, then I'll do that stuff. I said, start doing it now, and I'll give you more stuff later. He says, you don't understand politics, John. I'll have to tell you this, maybe you didn't know. In World War II, they used to fire anti-aircraft guns at airplanes. Now they send a radar beam up, measures the speed of the airplane, goes back to the gun, and the gun moves to where that plane is going to be in the next 3 minutes. Do you understand? The guy doesn't have to boom, 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 just shoot the airplane. The guns now have a mind. And so some people get mad at me and they say, oh, doesn't that mean the machines are going to take over? No. It doesn't mean that. It means the reason machines will never take over is because they have no feelings. I said this many times. If you work your computer Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it doesn't say, give me 2 days off a week, will you? 1 day off, goddammit. It has no feelings. It doesn't care. You can work your computer Saturday, Sunday, and drop it in a bucket of water. It doesn't care. It doesn't get mad at you. That's a human attribute.
You have said another thing, that if you put 100 laptops in a row and you start smashing them, no one will care.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So science fiction, Hollywood makes movies showing the guy that designed a robot and the robot chokes him. Hollywood makes movies and does that. That is not the future. That's some jerk's idea of the future. Or you go, you'll see a movie called Star Trek. And in that movie, they use laser weapons. They're fighting villains from other planets. It's still cowboys and Indians in space. The people of the future are educated if they can fly out into space They have educated very broadly. Children always want to know, Daddy, what makes television work? And Daddy says, I don't know. What makes lights work? He doesn't know. If you kidnap two people from the earth, say both these girls, and you brought them to another planet, and they say, we have electric lights, television, they say, how does your television work? I don't know. How does your electric light? I don't know. They're lying, or else they're ignorant. Because we teach children when they're growing up how everything works. So when you leave your rooms, the lights go out automatically. You don't have to turn them out. You know how much that would save in electrical energy? If every time you walk out of the building, all the lights went out automatically? The electric companies will hate your guts if you had that bill. There's always someone that will hate you, because if I made an automobile tire that lasts 15 years, he owns a tire company, he will buy the patent, but he won't turn it on, because it'll do away with your business. Do you understand that? If the drug company finds out that celery juice lowers blood pressure, they're not going to tell you that. They get $2 for every pill. So I'm saying that the money system hurts people. There's nothing good about it. They say, well, doesn't money generate incentive? Yes. It also generates embezzlement, corruption, taking care of your brother-in-law, paying off a senator. You know what I'm talking about? The money system. If you work in the aircraft industry and you haven't got many orders for aircraft, if you're smart, you'll go to Russia with cameras and photograph their armies. You'll go to North Korea and photograph their and bring it back and show it to the senators. We need more airplanes. We need more of this. So you make movies to get money, to build, to get contracts. You scare the shit out of people. You tell them that the enemy is building airplanes and missiles. That's why I ask people if they ever saw that headline, America intends to nuclear bomb 7 cities. The paper is called The Telegraph. Don't take my word for it. Write for The Telegraph. It said, U.S. plans to sneak attack and bomb 7 cities. China, North Korea, all the other countries we don't like. That's why they're building nuclear weapons. What do you think would happen if China said, we intend to bomb America, England, and France? What would happen? We'd arm to the tooth. Do you understand what I'm saying? But if you don't know that, you say those countries are bad for making weapons. Why should they tell you that? It would serve no useful purpose for my company that makes weapons to tell you we photographed that to scare the shit out of people so they'll order weapons for defense. Do you understand? There are gun clubs that say, we have the right to hunt and all that. Well, some hunters told me, you know, I like deer, they're so nice. I don't like shooting them, but after all, you don't have to eat them. They can get meat anywhere, but they shoot deer. There are many hunters, I don't know if you know this, in England, used to hunt aborigines, primitive people, because they thought they weren't human. You know, and they'd shoot them. Now, Teddy Roosevelt used to shoot elephants, because they were big, and gorillas. Gorillas are very peaceful, very easygoing, and Teddy Roosevelt used to shoot them and then stand next to a photograph with 2 gorillas. You know what I mean? I told some of you this, that George Washington had 300 slaves. The first president of the United States was a son of a bitch. Do you understand what I mean? 300 slaves. If the public knew that, they'd get mad at him. They don't know that the Kennedys used to screw around continuously, the Kennedy family. Screw around with lots of women. Did you know that? Now, it's not a good idea to put that out because the public gets mad. So they don't put it out. Christianity is a business.
Yeah.
They said the Lord needs your money and support.
Yes.
The Lord
Jesus
doesn't need
didn't
your
mean that.
fucking money. You understand that?
Yeah.
God doesn't need money. And I don't believe in gods or devils anyway, because I think they're control devices. They're used because the kings and the rich people had a lot of valuable things in their home, and the poor had nothing. So they used to break the windows and steal. Where did the kings get all that stuff? You know where? They won wars and they took it from other kingdoms. When we beat Germany, we took their rockets and their rocket scientists and brought them to America and said, how can we make better rockets? We kidnapped them. Do you understand that? We stole their rocket science, their airplanes, everything we can get. So I'm trying to tell you, all nations are corrupt. That's all. Don't you believe in any nation? No, none of them are any good. I'm talking about your country, my country, no good. We need a different system. Yes.
Do you believe a political party representing the social principles of the Venus Project would stand any chance of being elected or doing something to change the system from the inside out?
They will never be elected. Never. But when the system fails, when all industries go bankrupt and you don't bail them out, the Venus Project is the only workable plan where there's no hierarchy. Technicians don't run anything. They build bridges, or they build tunnels, or railways, but they don't tell people what to do. That's done by computer. The computers are connected to industry, to the farms. And when the computers tell us there's 20 million people in this area, that determines how much food you grow in that area, not Fresco. I said, well, let's make a farm a mile long without a survey of how many people. Then he says, Fresco, you're going to build a hospital in that city? How big should your hospital be? The answer is, I don't know. How many sick people do you get a year in that country? He says 4,000. So we build 4,500 extra hospitals. But I can't go ahead and build railroad trains and buses unless I know how many people travel to work. Otherwise, you don't know how many trolleys to build. So I'm trying to tell you that no one in the Venus Project makes decisions. They arrive at them. Do you know the difference? Arrive at them means do a survey first. How much land, how much food can that land support? He says 4,000 people. If you have 10,000 people, you're going to have malnutrition, weaker people, starving people, because the land doesn't produce. But if he invents a new way to grow food fast, then you can say we can now support 15,000 people. But that has to come first. So you're not making decisions, you're arriving at them. Do you know the difference? I met Norbert Wiener. He came up with cybernetics. But he wanted to try to make this system better. This is what he wanted. If industry had a new machine, he wanted to call the workers and shorten the workday. But the businessman said, what am I going to shorten the workday for? When I can get them to work all kinds of hours with faster machines. You understand? They don't want to shorten the workday. They want to gain more control. So if you deal with those kind of people, the system has to run its course. I don't know if you know what that means. Indians fight with bow and arrows. They never sit back and improve the bow and arrow, make a machine gun. People that surpass the bow and arrow will dominate the culture. If you come up with, I'll have to tell you this, Poland believed in the cavalry. You know what that is? Horseback. The Nazis believed in war tanks. They wiped out the Polish army. If you don't think ahead, you'll be surpassed. It has nothing to do with Fresco. If a country doesn't make a better automobile than the Japanese, our country, faster, lighter, cheaper, better, you can't surpass the Japanese unless you come up with something better. And no company, to my knowledge, has yet come up with anything better. So we will be defeated. Now, if you want to make a better car, you have to know a lot about cars. The better car will have the motor in the wheel, direct drive, not transmission. You know what that means? You have a shaft that transmits the power to the two wheels. And you have ball bearings in the wheels. And they wear out and they need lubrication. But if he comes up by an idea with a bunch of magnets in a circle, and the shaft has magnets in the opposite way, there's no friction, no lubrication, and no ball bearings. So he can make an automobile and guarantee no wear because they suspended in the magnetic field. You know what I'm talking about? He will survive. But if this man comes up with a motor in each wheel, he doesn't do that, he will pass by. So the future is not determined by people, it's determined by invention. And if you don't invent, you'll still have the Iceman bringing ice to you. When I was a kid, that was normal. A man used to bring ice and put it in the icebox. With the refrigerator, they're gone. Then there were women operating elevators. They're all gone. I haven't seen one in years. So what's happening is people are being moved out, and machines are coming in. It is not a machine takeover. They use machines because they're faster than people. They can move 100 bottles of Coca-Cola faster than any human being can move them. And they have injectors that inject Coca-Cola to 100 bottles at a time. No human can do that. So humans are on the way out. Now, if you don't understand that, there are cashiers in markets, but you'll notice, I don't know if they have it here, the markets have a new machine. You pass your card through it, and it tabulates the cost of the food. There's no cashiers. They're doing away with cashiers. Did you ever see that? ITM doesn't have a banker sitting behind there. You program how much money you want now, and it scans your money, make sure it's real. And also, people are being moved out. 15 years from now, there'll be no pilots flying commercial airliners. There'll be 6 separate circuits flying that airline. If one fails, the other 5 take over, not one unit. If you put one unit there and it fails, goodbye. So a pilot, if he gets a heart attack, too bad. They break down too, you know. You understand? So a person says to me, well, I don't really trust machines. When you get in an airplane, you trust the machine. Because the pilot, if both engines fail, he can't do anything. You understand what I'm saying? So it isn't trust, it's competent technology. That means when you press an elevator button to the 10th floor, you want it to take you to the 10th floor. And if somebody cuts the cable of the elevator, you know what I mean, that supports the elevator, there are 2 brakes that go out sideways if you cut the cable. Did you know that? I love that system because it doesn't require human input. Yes, in the beginning, humans have to do that. But computers are getting smarter, but no feelings. And they can do thousands of wonderful things. Your laptop, if you know how to use it, can get you information from all over the world. Do you understand that? Now, who would believe 50 years ago that someday you'll have a little thing on your lap that can get you all kinds of information? Are there memory metals? Yes, it'll tell you where to get it, who makes it, how much it is. What's new in heart surgery? I'll tell you the latest, if you know how to use your computer. Now, the computer will get smaller, faster, and more information. There used to be a time when I used to buy film for my camera. Now that's gone. There was then tape. Now there's a long chip you put in there that takes photographs without film, one after the other. And you don't have Kodak closed down that plant. They now make chips. You understand? So when a person says, can I have job security? That's a stupid thing. Of course not. There's no security in jobs. Now, I went to China and I said, I didn't come as an American waving a flag. I came as an international person who said, I love the Chinese, the Greeks, the French, all people. And the Chinese trusted me for some reason or other. And I said, you know America's building super submarines, super guns, laser weapons. What are you going to do about that? And this is what they told me privately. They said all war systems today have computer backups. All the Pentagon, every airplane. We are working on computer jamming systems. You know what that means? If you build a super army with war tanks, you work on computer jamming system. Jam the computers of the advanced countries, and they can't fly anymore. You don't need to build hundreds of aircraft carriers, battleships. The wars, guys are getting smarter, and there's no security. If you say, well, we're going to check you getting on an airplane, we're going to x-ray your luggage, they want to make sure you don't have any knives or guns.
May I ask something?
But I said I can design clothing that gives off nerve gas. You can't x-ray that. Whatever you think of, another nation can think outside of your system. There is no security in any military system. Proof, Pearl Harbor. We gave them radar, everything. And the Japanese planes came over, and the guys detected it. They said, there's a whole bunch of airplanes coming. And they took it to a captain. And he said, they're probably our planes. So what good is all that shit? Then you have air bases all over this country, and these guys hijacked 2 airplanes and flew them into the trade center. Where's your security? Where is it? Now, I can design thousands of different systems, but I wouldn't do it. I'm not that kind of person. That would destroy everything on Earth, but I wouldn't do it. Einstein and Professor Urey and what's the other guy's name? Oppenheimer worked on the atom bomb. And they hoped, this is in their head, that the government would not use it, just say we have terrible weapons. But Oppenheimer went to see President Truman. I told you he was a hat salesman. He had a hat store, a real dumbbell of the first order. He went to Truman and said, Oppenheimer, will you drop the bomb offshore, 30 miles offshore Japan? Just tell them we have a terrible weapon, we'd rather not use it, so please surrender. Yeah. So President Truman said, I don't want those guys in my office anymore. I banned them. And he kicked them out, and he dropped a bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because he was a stupid man. He built hatred amongst the Japanese for us. They can't do anything about it now, but the hatred is very deep. When you kill other people in the Arab world, bomb their cities, you're generating hate for future generations. Then let's not only figure the cost of the war, World War II, figure the cost of treating veterans after the war for 30 years for war injuries. You know what that costs? It's cheaper to go to a country and say, what do you need? And give them food, machinery, help them, so they don't need to invade other lands. It's cheaper to give people what they need than kill. Killing costs an awful lot of money for all countries. There was a time when women in America could not vote. Did you know that? Because they were women. And then they always got less money for the same job that men did. And men can screw around with 10 women, and they say they admire them. He's Don Juan. But if a girl screws around with 2 guys, she's a tramp. Who wrote to put them in? They're super tramps. Do you understand what I mean? Men make the world for men. And the men are not objective or reasonable, because they're brought up in a country that says, how come you only have 1 girlfriend? He has 9. See, because he's tall, handsome, has wavy hair. And the girls see the movies, and he's the guy, he's the hero. So girls, too, are loused up. Everybody in this culture is loused up. So if you marry a very beautiful girl, if she's mean, and that face becomes ugly after so many years. Do you understand? So the notions of beauty, people believe there is such a thing as beauty. But I can assure you, if you were brought up in Africa with the Ubangis, with the big lips, you know, they cut the lips and put clay in there, and some put rings on their neck, and the neck is that long. That's beauty to them. So beauty does not exist as a real thing. It's just a concept that we have. If all the girls, I said before, had a nose a foot long, you'd have surgery done, because everybody would look at you in the street. You know what I'm saying? If all girls shave their head, They said, look at that funny-looking girl. That's why when I was a kid, if a Chinese person came to town, we'd run down the street and look and go, dong, 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 you know, because we were stupid. We were brought up to think Americans are the only good kids, you know. And then you find out in ancient Greece, I don't know if you knew this, when a virgin got married, they'd hang the bed sheet out with the blood stains on it.
Until 30 years ago.
Not
Not only
still
30,
do?
20 years ago.
To show that the girl is a
Not
virgin.
that old.
They still do that?
Yeah, in the villages.
You mean now it's a country?
In the village.
They maybe still do it in some villages.
But anyway, you can put ketchup out there. The point is, we are all very stupid. God does not put a pecker on a man and say, don't use it until you get married. Because the guy's walking around with a pecker all over. It would pop out the day you got married. Do you understand? Okay. So men, when they get close to women, get an erection. When they get excited, they get an erection. And the girls say, take a shower, cool off. That doesn't stop it. But I said in the South Seas, in the South Sea Islands, they had sex when they were ready for it. Nobody ever talked about it. Guys said, I just got laid. They never said that. It's like telling a person, I had bacon and eggs this morning. They don't care. So they get laid when they're able to. You know what I mean? And they don't talk about it.
Physical reaction.
And I told you that the guys have no fetishes. Since everybody walks around nude and swims nude, there's no peeping toms. You know what that is? The guy that looks in the window that sees a girl undressed. If everybody walks around nude, there are no peeping toms. There are also no fetishes. You know what that is? A fetish is a tit man that likes tits, or he likes legs, or he likes long hair. Those are different kinds of fetishes. Once I met a girl I was going to have sex with, and she came to my apartment with a suitcase and opened it. There was a whip and handcuffs. I want to be chained to the bed. Great. I said, I can't do that because I was not brought up to do that. There's a guy that likes to do that. But I did not look at her as bad. I looked at her, I found out she was a Catholic. And if she thought sexually, that was a sin. But if she was raped, it was not a sin. So she wanted to be chained to the bed and raped. So it's not a sin. Do you understand? You don't understand that? So different people develop different sexual attributes. Not because they're bad, because they're brought up under different circumstances. If you take normal men and put them in prison for 10 years, they'll be looking at white ass of younger boys. But it doesn't make them gay. When they get out, they go back to women. But in prison, they develop different. In Mexico, your wife can visit you and have sex with you because they understand it's wrong to put a man in jail and deprive him of that. Now, in the books on sex in America, it says if you touch the back of a girl's neck, that arouses her. If she doesn't like you and touch the back, it doesn't arouse her at all. You have to be favorable to the guy. You know what I mean? So all the bullshit in the books on sex in America are based on our culture. Do you understand? Now a person says, I said to Einstein once, do you believe in truth? He says, what do you mean by truth? I said that certain things are a certain way. He says, give me an example. I said, well, this is smooth. He put it under a microscope and it looks like that. So I said, gee, I thought it was smooth. Is that what it's really like? He said, no. He enlarged it and it looked like slivers. I said, is that what it's really like? He said, that's stupid. If I blow it up more, it'll be small particles. We cannot see things as they are. There are radio waves here going through. There are bacteria all over the floor. We can't see it. But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So we can never be fully conscious because your consciousness depends on your receptors. If you can't see radio, like I met a person who says, I belong to a high consciousness organization in America. I says, are you the leader? He said, yes. I said, where are your kidneys? He says, I'm not sure. I said, how fast is the blood moving in your own blood vessels? He says, I don't know. I said, what do you mean by consciousness? Awareness, you know what I mean? Now, are you aware that the people are going to fly into the towers? Are you aware of the Japanese attack? What do you mean by higher consciousness? There's no such thing. You can only sense what you've been educated to sense. Now, if you still don't understand me, if you have better eyesight than me, but I have educated vision, that means I can observe every 10 degrees, which you can't. A person that studies music can hear things you don't even, you have better hearing, but you don't have educated audio systems. You know what I mean? A doctor can look at your body and say, that's the early stages of cancer. How does he know? He was educated differently than you. So when you say I'm conscious, you can't tell doctors what to do about cancer. I throw out the word consciousness because I got no use for it. When a person says to me, I've said this before, I'm a nature lover. You've heard that?
Yes.
And I say, you mean you love earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, disease, which is all natural.
Maybe this means
There's
that
no such thing
you
as a
want-
nature lover.
You don't destroy the nature by purpose.
Well, there are some aspects of nature that are not good for people, and some are good. But if you're a nature lover, what the hell does that mean? That you like everything about nature? You come to home and all the buildings have been destroyed in an earthquake, 10 million people are dead. I love nature. I don't know what she's talking about. She means she likes certain aspects of nature. Peach trees, apple trees, but not tornadoes and hurricanes. So you don't say I love nature, say I like certain aspects of nature. Now suppose someone asks a normal person, normal means fucked up, mixed up, when I use the word. And normal people are very dangerous, because if you say to normal people, do you think man will ever get to the moon? This was years ago. Not in 1,000 years. They got their opinions about everything. The right words are, I don't know. I'm not technical. I don't even know how to build a rocket ship. I don't even know what the requirements are. You ask people, do you think man will ever fly? If the good Lord wanted man to fly, he'd have been born with wings. If the good Lord wanted you to wear clothing, you'd have been born with clothing. If he wanted you to live in a house, you'd be born in a house. So they don't know what they're talking about. You know, they say, well, let everything be natural, then walk around naked. Oh, you can't do that. Man is a dumb animal, made dumb by society. They don't teach you how to think, how to relate, how to disagree without getting mad. They teach you how to be jealous. Here's how you do that. If you have 2 children and you give gifts to one child, because you didn't do your homework, he did, and I give him gifts, he becomes jealous of you. And when you fall down the stairs, he has a grin on his face. And so you say, he's a son of a bitch. No. Parents that know children must never play with the young baby and neglect the 7-year-old. If you have an older child, put him on your lap, and the young child. But if you just play with the younger child, they'll live. You understand? So I think I told most of you that I never taught my kids how to read. Mm-hmm. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I did is I read to them about children's things that they like, dinosaurs, big animals, and I said, you know, when the Triceratops met the Brontosaurus, that's 2 types of dinosaurs, they met, and I closed the book. The kids said, well, what happened? I said, look, if you learn to read, you can know what happened. And I always pretended, you know, and I was tired. I want them to think, to be different, to be more advanced than me. Well, how do you do that? I said, I don't know. So I read the life of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. And in that book, I saw the difference between their upbringing and the normal person. So what I did is I read about all kinds of animals to my kid. Then I said one day, how would you like to go to the zoo to see these animals? He says, when? I said, next month. Next month? That's to build a hunger You understand what I mean? If I take him right away, it doesn't. Now he's waiting. At the end of the month, I said, today we're going. And when he got to the city, let me tell you, he looked at every animal with detail. You know? And I said, I have a business appointment in town. This is not true. He said, but I like this. This is very interesting. The elephants and the rhinos. I said, I'm sorry to break that when he was hot on the animals, studying it. So when he got home, I put clay and drawing paper in his bedroom. And he's making elephants and rhinos. You understand that? And drawing them, not very good. But I said, outside and play with the boys. But I like making things. I said, I don't care. Get out there and play. He hated my guts, but I was making him a smarter boy. I don't think of whether he loved me or not. The point is, what do you know? What made Leonardo da Vinci like he is? He associated with people that were different than the average person, that talked of gears and levers. That's why I said to you, man cannot think or reason. This applies to me. I can't either. But so I asked an Indian, who invented the bow and arrow and how did he do it? Well, the grandfather of an Indian told me that his grandfather told him that men used to skin animals, bears mostly, and put the skin out in the sun to dry. And when they came back, it was half the size. It would shrink. So they tied the skin with leather to a frame so it wouldn't shrink too much. But the strands of leather that they cut would shrink, become short and fat. So they tied it to a piece of wood. If the wood was thick, it didn't shrink too much. But if the wood was thin, it became a bow. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Nobody ever sat down and invented anything. So the guy got mad at me, the guy from the optics department. He said, what about the movie camera? There's no movie camera out there to suggest anything. So I told him about the Chinese almost 2,000 years ago. They used to cut a girl out of cardboard with her hands up like that, and a skirt, and thin legs. And it was called a dancing girl. And they put that cardboard girl on the table, and they put a candle in front, and oiled bamboo paper in front over here. As the candle flickered, the girl danced. You know, when a candle burns off and sideways, and that dancing girl. And that was 1,000, almost 800 years ago. But later, the Chinese invented paper, bamboo paper, and they made it bind. They bind the paper together, and they used to write the Chinese characters. But in the corner, they made marks, so you know it was page 5, page 10. If you grabbed that pad and went, the numbers jumped all over the place. Do you know what that means? Everybody? If you make marks in a corner of a book and flip it fast, the marks jump. And Chinese artists drew a bird with the wings in different positions in the corner. When the bird looked like it was flying. Then he drew waves, a man walking, and he put it in the corner of paper. Another Chinese put all those drawings on a wheel and turned it. So the more pictures you put there, the smoother the flight. But sometimes it looked good, sometimes it didn't. Until he put his finger in front and stopped the picture for 1/10 of a second. Just don't let the pictures go by fast. Stop them with a piece of bamboo or your finger, then it looked very good. A Frenchman machined that out of brass. Beautiful job. And he put a lot of pictures in. The Edison company bought that from the Frenchman. And they think that Edison invented the camera, the movie camera. Serially developed, you know what that means? Little by little. Nobody ever sat down and invented a camera for anything, just a little bit. So somebody got mad at me again and said, what about Nikola Tesla? He made wireless communication without wires. How did he think of it? Well, when you bought electric wire, they used to wrap it around a form. And sometimes the wire was broken, and they connected 2 electrodes just to make sure the current went through, you know, if it wasn't broken. But they did that for years until a guy bought fine wire, and they wrapped around a small tube and put it inside the big tube. When the guy bought all the stuff he wanted, they packaged all that together, which was good. But when he tested the outside wire, it induced a coil in the inside wire, electric current, without being connected. That's where Nikola Tesla got it from. Nobody ever invented anything without picking it up somewhere in nature. Art, in the old days, if you look at primitive art, the faces are not accurate. With Da Vinci, he said the head fits into the body 7 times. He began to measure and give people proportions, so they drew a more accurate representative. But if you go to a primitive culture, the heads are too big, the body is too small, the fingers are too thick. You know, if you look at Michelangelo's drawings, he was a good artist. Today's artists are far more accurate, but they're not famous because the public doesn't know how to look at art. The art critics, Picasso, for example, is a fraud. He can't really draw well. His drawings are lousy. But publicity made him famous. You know what hype means? Hype made him famous. Now, there are artists today who meet with doctors, and the doctor has a technique in surgery. But in the old days, before cameras, he said, can you make drawings of surgery showing younger doctors the best approach? So he made a lot of drawings. But with cameras today, you don't need that anymore. You don't need to paint Abraham Lincoln. In the old days, that was just the beginning of the camera age. They did photograph Lincoln. But when it goes back earlier, we didn't have cameras. So artists were absolutely necessary. They drew people. They weren't very good. Their proportions weren't right. But with the advent of the camera, you really don't need it. So when architects design a building, they give the blueprints to Roxanne, and she takes that elevations and converts it to a perspective. You know what that means? She uses technical methods. And when she draws a building, she draws it from the eye level 50 feet away in June. The shadows are so long in June. So if you give me a photograph of a German aircraft factory taken by an airplane, I can take that photograph, convert it to a top view, figure out how many square feet there are, and by the amount of cars parked around, I can tell you roughly what their production rate is per month. Now, if I get a picture of a German airplane, brand new one, just a perspective, I can convert it to a top view, front view, side view, and do the wing area. I can tell you how many bombs it carries, how much space it needs to take off, and what its destructive capacity is. But that has to do with mathematics, and it has to do with geometry. But artists don't know anything. Artists hate the kind of drawings I do. I can draw a cutaway view of an airplane with all the seats in it, the motor, all the parts of the airplane. And artists say, you're not an artist, you're a draftsman, because they are being wiped out. Just like a man said, a machine can't be faster than the designer. Well, you know, if a guy designs a production machine for eggs moving, he can't move them that fast. I'm thinking of that. And I know a little guy that designed a machine to pick up a freight train and empty it. He can't do that. And men that design airplanes that move 3,000 miles an hour, they can't keep up with that airplane. Machines are always faster than people, always better than people. You can't remember all the stuff in your computer. Your computer has limitless information in it, and it's getting smaller. Your laptop, about 40 years ago, would fill a whole building with tapes, what your laptop does today. What your laptop will do 5 years from now, it'll be as small as a watch and generate all kinds of things. I'm sure you understand that. So when we raise people in the future, we raise them to expect change, to look forward to change, that everything we design is limited. Automobiles are dumb. They have to be smarter. So when your top is down and you go to a movie, one raindrop falls on and brings the top on. We can make machines smart enough to take care of themselves. But in the future, there are machines that understand language. You say, I want you to take me to the art center. It'll say which one. And then when you tell it, it'll take you there. But it won't cut in front of other cars. It'll scan and then move over. You know what I mean by scan first? Now, so when you sit at a table in the future, the menu lights up, just so you're sitting there. You can't see a menu. You say, hey girl, bring me a menu. You know what I'm saying? When you sit down, the menu light, then it scans you. If you're wearing a watch or anything, it has the fact that you're diabetic and it adjusts the food to your condition. And it comes up in the middle of the table and goes to you, him, and the other guy. And when you're through, there's a basket you open with a knife, spoon, and fork in the beginning. Then there's a rod later on that's electrically charged permanently. You put it in the soup sticks to it, doesn't drop on your lap. All the things that you do today, let me tell you a little bit about television. Now you got high definition. The next stage is 3D without glasses. The stage after that is full-size images. It'll project an image into your room of your grandmother instead of on the screen. The only thing the matter with it is you put your hand through your grandmother, but she'll look solid.
It's a hologram.
The next thing is teletactile, where you can shake hands with your grandmother. Now here's how that'll be done. I'm going to tell you how it'll be done, so if I kick the bucket in the next 10 years, you'll see it, you'll know.
Resurrection.
First of all, when you stick your finger into hot water, the nerve endings are all the same here. If you stick it in cold water, they're still the same. But the signal to the brain may be 100,000 vibrations per second. That's cold water. Hot water is a different thing. When you touch a balloon, it yields. When you touch a hard surface, it doesn't. So the signal from the fingertip to the brain is what hot water, cold water, the nerve endings in the soup respond differently. Your tongue has thousands of little holes in it. When you eat bacon, it goes in those holes, and the nerve on the bottom is titillated a certain way. It vibrates a certain rate that you call bacon and eggs. If you measure those vibrations and play them into the tongue, you can play any taste. If I know the same vibrations that make you say the water is cold, if I play that into your nerve endings, I stick a needle in your finger and I make a recording of the nerve transmission. If I play that into your finger, you'll feel cold water or hot water. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, do you understand how it works? So, in the future, when you touch a warm hand, it's from the nerve endings to the brain that tells you that it's flexible and warm. So if you know what that is, which they haven't begun to do that work yet, the future will bring Frank Sinatra into your room, though he's dead 15 years ago, full size, and you can shake hands with Frank Sinatra. But the old people used to say, you can't be two places at the same time. You ever hear that? When Frank Sinatra sings, don't forget he's dead. He sings 1,000 places at the same time, all over the world, that broadcast. So, if you are, say, 65 years old, and your husband dies, if we take enough pictures of your husband, he can be walking around in the room, and you can sit with him, hold hands, go for a walk, even though he died 10 years ago. So, you know, the world of future is so different than the way you're brought up to think, well, they can never do that. It's not reviving the dead. It's doing stereo, just like Frank Sinatra is a movie, and he sings. They never expected movies to talk. You understand? Then they never, when you see a movie of a forest in the future and the wind is blowing, you'll feel the wind and you'll smell the flowers. But I don't mean they're going to grind up flowers and put it in the ventilator. Once you know what a rose smells like, and you measure the nerve endings and the frequency sent to the brain, you play that on your television set. So a guy is cooking a steak, you smell it. You understand? You understand how now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to tell you, a guy named Bose, you're going to have to look it up if you want to, Sir Jagadesh Chandra Bose, years ago, took some animal tissue, nerve endings, and he put them across 2 electrical terminals, put a candle underneath it, and he got readout of pain from the muscles. They had a very different way of thinking, and he wondered what would happen if I put a piece of copper wire across. And he said he didn't know. He put a candle on it, and he got the same readout as living systems, identical. So he wrote a book called Response in the Living and Non-Living. He took that to England, and he told them what he was doing, and they laughed at him. I'm talking about scientists. Until 10 years later, they went to his lab. They said, how did you measure that? And he built all his own instruments. And they brought him back to England and knighted him for his work. Then he said to people that a cucumber, you know what that is, a plant? When you stick a needle into it, it's 6 times as sensitive as a human being to pain. He wrote a book on that. And the guy says, I'm a vegetarian, because they think vegetables don't feel anything. You know, so I'm a vegetarian. Now, I'm not taking away your vegetarianism. You live on other animals, on plants and animals. If you're a vegetarian, you live on plants, but they feel pain too, according to Bose. Now, I'm not asking you not to be a vegetarian. You can't live unless you eat meat and vegetables. Now, that's up to you what you want to do. When you say, will we kill animals in the future, kids will be educated not to enjoy hunting. So if you work on new ways, what do you suggest means, do you have a way of not doing that? And if you don't, you have nothing. If you say there should be kindness in the world, not armies, how do you do that? I don't know, then shut up. You understand what I'm talking about? We will train soldiers to be not killing machines, but problem solvers. You take millions of soldiers, send them back to school, teach them about fires and misery, and teach them how to go about solving problems. That's what it's about. That's what the Venus Project is about. Not technicians ruling you. There are assigned projects, build a bridge, grow food, but they don't control people. Nobody does. We have computers that grow food, harvest the crops, deliver it to the distribution centers, but they don't control people. They just produce food, products automatically and send them to supermarkets. Do you understand
Yes.
that? We never use machines to kill people. We use them to do dirty, repetitive jobs where you won't learn anything doing it.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
If we overpopulate the Earth and we exceed the carrying capacity of the Earth, let's say it's 10 billions, and we keep giving birth and we go like 15 billions, what do we do about it? Do we have to move to other planets?
Well, if children are educated in the future, and if the Venus Project gets in, we'll maintain a balance between the carrying capacity of the Earth and the population. Like, let me tell you how children learn. Children say to mother, where do babies come from? She says, the stork brings them. Then later she gets a big belly, and the children says, how come you got a big belly? They say, because I'm bringing you a little sister or a brother. And the little girl says, almost all the time, don't you like children? The mother says, I love them. Then why did you eat them? Do you understand? The kids with a big belly, that's normal to them. Then when you tell them the stork brings the baby, then you tell them mother brings the baby. You lie to your kids. And you believe you want your kids to be honest. You tell them Santa Claus comes down the chimney and he brings you all these toys. That's a lie. You say America is the greatest country in the world. That's a lie. In what area is it the greatest country? The Russians sponsor art, music, artists, painters, ballet. The U.S. doesn't, not to the extent France does. So when you talk about another country and says, my country is the best country in the world, always ask, in what area? Training aviators, what? You know what I mean?
What do you think that is the meaning of life?
Okay. People ask that all
Can I ask something before we go there? One small thing.
Yes, that's all.
Would you take back your child if you had the chance to not have one? Would you not have one?
Yes. Very much so. The reason I had a child is I asked my wife, I said, if you marry me, I don't want children. So you must use a contraceptive or I will use it. She said, I'll use a contraceptive. And then when I got to Haiti, I went there to help them. She says, I'm pregnant. Now she thought if she had children, she could get me to go along with it. But before I married, I had all my friends over and she says, do you understand if you marry me, I can be put in prison, I can be shot, because I live an experimental life. I'm not conventional. I can't deal with children. I don't have the time. I want to work on hundreds of children, not my children. I think it's a disadvantage for me to make my children brilliant and not consider other children. Then I also realized that all children are the same. They cry and they want toys. They're not that different. If you don't understand that, if you had an 11-year-old child and you loved it, and the hospital called you and said, we gave you the wrong baby 11 years ago, are you going to turn it in?
No, I'm not talking about...
So anyway, men are brought up to want their name, Fresco, the baby Fresco, in the future. We want my name to go on.
Yes, but
which is
children
bullshit.
are not the evolution of humankind.
What's that?
There must be a sequel. Children are not the evolution.
Yes.
Are not smarter. Every generation after the other.
Well, in the future, we can raise children outside the body.
I think that is happening
You
now.
understand?
Children are more clever than
Right,
us.
that will happen. Not only that, they'll be educated by people that know how the brain works, and they will, I better tell you this, so you didn't know this. When I had children, I did do my best to try to help them. So I wanted to see if I could communicate with my little boy when he was just a few months old. They said, you can't communicate with children in the books until they learn to speak. So I said, maybe that's not true. So I said, what are you going to do to prove it? I said, I don't know. So later on, I thought of what to do. I put, you know what an atomizer is? You squeeze the ball, the perfume comes out. I put that ball in the crib at the on one side, when the baby could crawl, not walk, couldn't even talk. And I put that yellow ball, very broad, at the end of the crib. And he crawled over and grabbed it. And when he grabbed it, lights went on above the crib in a circle. And he let go because he didn't know that made the lights go. And the lights went out, and that lower up, hey, started crying. After touching that 10 times, he knew
like
that
Pavlov's dog.
Once that was established,
Experiment.
I put another one the other end of the crib. And I knew it's called associative memory. He would crawl over and grab it without me having to wait all that time anymore, because the brain's already circuited that way. So he grabbed the other one, and nothing happened above, but on the wall, lights went up and down. And when he was about 4 months old, he had 6 balls that he squeezed. When he wet his pants, mother came in. When he had to take a shit, he squeezed the other. So I communicated with him earlier. But before that, I said, what is communication? What is it? The guy said, well, we communicate with people to share ideas. Not true. We communicate with people to control their behavior. Get me a glass of water. He gets me a glass of water. So I said to my wife, make breakfast. She makes breakfast. So it's a control device. It's not to communicate. Among scientists, it might be to communicate. when people show you pictures of their kids, they're not communicating. First of all, do you like kids? I hate them, that they won't show you pictures of their kids. And people used to, when I was a kid, they'd bring me a football, because I was a boy, and I says, I dislike sports intensely, all sports. Now, normal people are brought up to like kicking a ball, handball, tennis. That's normal to your culture. But it was not normal to me. So you can't bring a person a gift unless you ask the person, what do you consider a gift? Here's information on apes, how they learn, how they grow up. You buy them that book. Ask a person what their area of interest is, then buy them a gift. Don't buy what you think they want. People are always giving me a bottle of wine. I don't drink, or a box of cigars. I don't smoke. So ask the person, do you smoke? No. Do you like children? No. Do you like flying? Yes. Bring me a book on aviation. That's a gift. But if I bring you a book of what I think you ought to have, that's a dictatorship. That's not concern for the other person. Concern for the other person is asking them, what do you like? Is I love sailing. Then give him a course in sailing if he doesn't know how to sail. You understand what I'm saying? We don't know how to love other people. We look at a girl, if she's pretty, in the right shape, we say, boy, I can go for that girl. But that is not love, that's lust. Do you understand what I'm saying? If a guy loves you, he'll talk to you about the same way he talks to guys. He'll say, that guy is full of shit. He's not going to watch his language when he talks to girls. Treat them as equals. Women always say, we want to be treated as equals. So I use the word
They are
chicks.
not saying
Must
so.
you use that word? Yes, I must. If you want me to treat you as an equal. If you don't, I'll say, well, I'll open the door for you, but I'm older than you, so you should open the door for me. Because I'm not as stable as you. You know what? Now, men are brought up to believe that if a ship is sinking, women and children first. You heard that shit? I say first, do you know how to navigate? He says, yes, get on the boat. Do you know how to catch fish in the open sea? He says, yeah, get on the boat. Then women and children. Otherwise, they'll die of starvation. So all this little shit that you learn, I call calendar philosophy. You know, the family that prays together stays together. That's all bullshit. The family that prays together, when a hurricane comes, it doesn't go over the church or around the church, it blows the church into the sea. If there's a bus full of nuns on an icy highway, it'll slip off and fall. There is no evidence to show that a hurricane or fire avoids churches. Churches burn down, just like any other building. And they say prayers are always answered. That's a lie. Because the Christians that were put in the arena for lions to eat, they prayed and prayed, and they were eaten. And the Jews in the concentration camps prayed and prayed, and they were burned. And the witches were burned alive in Salem, Massachusetts. America, I'm talking about. George Washington had 300 slaves, black. He was the first president. Today he'd be arrested, put in jail for life. Yes. Okay. So what will, the transition will be painful. You may be shot, you may be shot. It depends on what you do. So what I want to do is make movies to help people understand the Venus Project. Because they picture in their own head what the Venus Project is. They picture a lot of scientists. You will work in this store. You will work there. It's not like that at all. You do what you want to do. You go whatever school you want to go to. It's not a dictatorship of technicians at all. If you design rail systems, and he's an electrical engineer, we will ask you to put electric wires in the rail so if it's disengaged, the train stops. He can design the train, but you're the electrical engineer. We tell you what we need. The engineers don't build anything. We tell them what to build. How do we get to be telling them what to build? By the conditions. If a lot of kids are hit by cars, it has to be like 5 or 6, they put up a traffic light. But there are many places that need traffic lights, but they don't put them. until a lot of kids are hurt. And if a lot of people are hurt in automobile accidents, they put up a sign, drive carefully. Now that doesn't stop accidents. But Mussolini, I never liked Mussolini, had a groove in the highway. So if you fell asleep, the car went in the groove, and there were bumps every 100 feet to wake you up. Oh, in that area, I like Mussolini. Just that area, nothing else. Now there's another thing that was done years ago. They tried to get people not to drive more than 55 miles an hour. So they put up a sign, drive no more than 55 miles an hour. But some engineer worked on the side of the road, he put little bumps, indents. And when you drove at 55 miles an hour, it said you're now in a national park, and the trees and the rocks and the geysers are here and there by the sound of your car bouncing off the little grooves. It was like a phonograph record where the needle bounces off the groove. Your car talked to you. But if you went faster, it was noise, pain in the ass. So they found through acoustics they can get people to drive more safely rather than a sign, drive safely. So we learn more and more technology. If you come in for a landing in San Francisco in the wintertime, sometimes the fog is so bad you can't see 5 feet in front of you. But infrared cameras can photograph the runway, and Doppler radar will tell you how high you are. You can't. So we put that machine in the Army plane about 45 years ago. And the Army plane took off from New York and landed in San Francisco without a pilot. But the airline pilots got mad. Do you understand what I'm talking about? We could, in the next 20 years, make airplanes that can scan the ground. If an earthquake cracked the earth or cracked the runway, it'll scan it and land elsewhere. Your airplane's as smart as a designer. If he's dumb and he doesn't know how to put those things in, the airplane will crash. So in our society, I try to tell people, if you're coming in for a landing and the wheels don't come down, sometimes that happens. That means a crash landing. Sparks. Because if your wheels don't come down, you bounce and create sparks, and the gasoline tank will rupture, and fire kills people. So if you press a button and the landing gear doesn't come down, that blows the fuel out right away. The pilot doesn't have to do that. When he blows the fuel out, it doesn't make the landing perfect. It means less probability of fire. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if you land and the brakes fail, pilot steps on the brakes and nothing happened, that plane can plow into other planes and people and the main building. So when the brakes fail, that causes nets to go up on the runway. They have that on an aircraft carrier. If the airplane is going to overshoot the length of the aircraft carrier, a net comes up. But it doesn't come up automatically when the brakes fail. Ours does. So we engineer things as best we know how. That's what I mean by a person says, yes, but will machines care? They don't have to care. They have to come up when the brakes fail. When you press 17, that elevator has to stop on the 17th floor. If somebody cuts the cable, it mustn't fall. We don't want elevators to care. We want them to stop injuring people. We don't want cars to care. We can make automobiles. If you drive at 70 miles an hour in a 40-mile-an-hour zone, and then you shift from one zone to the other, the machine will say to you, you dummy, you want to get us killed? Where the hell did you learn to drive? You don't want that in your car. You want your car to follow a beam and avoid contact with other cars. You don't want it to have emotions. If you know, we can simulate emotions. We can make people that look like people, psychologists. And when you tell a psychologist, both your children were killed in automobile accident, the eyebrows will move to the right angle, and the guy will say, how awful, I'm so sorry, but it won't feel anything. It's a generated image. Do you know what I'm talking about? You can make a machine distantly draws people. Cinderella and a wolf fights and the audience cries. It's drawings. They're not even real. So people are affected by movies, by things like that. They say, well, will a machine feel? I can make a machine that sniffs and weeps, and another person will weep because they're looking at it. Do you understand that or not? If I say you're married, and I take a guy, I look for months to find a guy that looks like your husband, and I put him in bed with another girl, but he looks a lot like your husband, and I say, look, I can't bring you up to the window, far away from her. She'll bore her husband out when he gets home. That you've been out with this girl, you bum, you tramp, you know, because we don't respond to the real world. We respond to the illusions we're given. For example, if my wife goes to bed with another guy, I would say, how much longer are you going to be? Then she says, another 20 minutes. So I'll wait. Where is it that I'm not meeting your needs? She said, well, you come so fast, and I don't even feel sex, you know what I mean? And she says, you're a lousy lover, but I love you as a person, but not sexually. Do you understand what I'm talking about? That's the truth. So if you marry a guy, and he's tall and handsome, but is unkind, you will be looking for kindness. If a man likes a girl with big bobs, and he marries a girl with little bobs, and he gets along with her, he's always looking at tits. And finally, he feeds a girl with big tits, he squeezes them, and you say, well, must you do that? The poor bastard's brought up by movies as a tit man. When the girl leans forward, the camera moves in on the big boobs, and that's where he gets it from. Nobody is good or bad. Do you understand that? Men are brought up a certain way. So if you marry a girl with short hair, but you've been brought up to like a girl with long hair, your patterns are different. So we want to control people. That's the whole damn thing. You must not control your wife. You must permit her to be what she wants to be. And if she's drawing at 10 o'clock at night, you say, honey, it's 10 o'clock, come to bed. You must respect the difference. If you go to a university and you live with a guy in a room and he's studying at 10 o'clock at night, you don't give a shit. When it's in your family, you say, come to bed, see? You must allow for these differences. She likes to work a computer till 2 o'clock in the morning. She can't get up in the morning if she does that. If you remind her of that she says she wants to get more sleep, but she works a computer, that's different. That's caring. But if she says, I can't sleep, I want to work, then you gotta go. Don't try to tell people to do what you want to do. You should not own your wife. You don't own your children. They're the best you have. Do the best you can. And if I say, well, I want you to play golf, honey, I want you to play tennis, that's superimposing my values on you. But if I say, do you like tennis? She says, I hate it. What do you like to do? I like swimming and diving. Okay. But we try to force other people to be like us. That's why most marriages fail. Because we are dictators. We tell your wife what you want to do. I want you to make me bacon, eggs, and morning. Make your own bacon and eggs in the morning. That's what guys should do. Help wash the dishes. Help cook. But don't put it all on your wife. Wipe the baby's ass. Pack his lunch. Send him to school. That isn't pleasant. You want kids? Wipe their ass. Pack their lunch. Men don't worry about those things. That's your job. So the world you live in is so full of shit, it's hard for me to describe it to you. The world of the future will be very different. There could be ass-wiping machines. And I've also told you that when women carry a baby, they carry it a certain way. They support it well. Sometimes the wife gives the baby to the husband, and he only supports the bottom of the baby. The baby goes, and the wife says, you men don't hold the baby. So I designed the basket once that inflates in relation to the baby's movement. And when you took it out of the basket, it cried. When mother took it out, it cried. Because the mother, if you say, well, how do you hold the baby? They say, well, it's just held naturally this way. They don't know what they're doing. When a child crawls and he gets up the first time, he doesn't know how to walk, so he leans forward and he falls and he cries. After many months, he learns to walk. But what is walking? Walking is taking your weight off this leg and freeing it and heading it that way. Then take the weight off this leg and free it and head it that way. When I was a kid, 17, I made a robot and I went like that, but it didn't walk because I didn't know what walking was. If you turn to a kid and say, how do you walk? He said, I don't know, he just got up and walked. He doesn't know how he walks. That's called physiological learning. Has no words. It's just the body learns. When a bird beats its wing faster, he goes in a circle. If it beats both wings at the same speed, he goes straight. If he goes like that, he stops on the branch. The bird doesn't know how he flies. Neither does a child know how he speaks. Does an artist know how he draws? No. Because we're drawing for so many years, he said, it's just natural. I'm an artist. I was drawing for years. But they don't know how to tell a normal person how to draw real well. If you can draw real well, you may not know how to communicate. There are some doctors that don't know, that are very good surgeons, but they don't know how to teach. You understand what I mean? So I watched a doctor teaching another doctor how to cut. It was a cadaver. He cut beautiful lines on it. Then he gave the scalpel to a young doctor, and the guy was going in and out and cutting, you know. He said, have you ever considered becoming a diagnostician rather than a surgeon? That was an insult to the guy. So I photographed the doctor through a grid, you know, wires running this way and that way. I photographed. He puts his hand on the body and sets his thumb and sets the scalpel so deep and pulls, riding on his fingers. The doctor was not riding on his fingers, he was riding free. So I showed him how to do that, and the doctor said, how did you learn so fast? He says, Jacques showed me film on how to do surgery. So sometimes a doctor doesn't know how to instruct. Sometimes teachers don't know how to teach. And they give you a D because you failed. You didn't fail, they don't know how to get to you. You understand? So all, if you understand what I'm talking about, all the schools, all conventional values will be changed in the future. Who does the deciding of what to change? What do you want of people? You don't want them to suffer, you don't want wars, you don't want unemployment, you don't want crime, right? That's what we base our society. What you don't want. And what you do want is people that understand you and know how to teach you with your value system. You know what I mean? Not insult you. He got an A, why didn't you get an A? Because you don't know how to teach both people. You teach certain people and they can learn your way, but he doesn't learn that way. He learns a different way. And I make more mistakes than anybody I know. Why? Because I try more things. And most things don't work. When you do something new, let me tell you, it usually doesn't work. Until you stay with it and correct it, correct this and that, and then eventually it works. I dropped a piece of balsa wood. You know what that is? Balsa wood is about that thick, that long, 1/16 thick. Very lightweight. I dropped it and it rotated down to the ground. It went very far. Ordinarily, if it didn't rotate, it would fall. But it rotated, went very far, and that suggested that I make two wings that rotate. But if I S-shaped them, the S shape made it rotate faster, which I learned later. So all my airplanes were different than that. The ordinary kids build, you know, the same kind of planes. All the kids, hundreds of them, new radical designs. So my airplanes always look different. Instead of walking over and saying to me, that's interesting, how does it work? They said, what the hell is that supposed to be? You understand? That's the ego. What the hell is that supposed to be? But if they were brought up sanely They say, what's the purpose of those new wings? I say, they rotate. So how well does it work? Well, it only works in short distances. So can you increase it? I don't know. I'm still working on it. That's the way you talk in the future. And you encourage kids to break from convention. Why do people wear eyeglasses? It's the only thing we know of today to help your vision. But it isn't final. You know what I mean? At night, the British Air Force, this is true, World War II, could not see too well at night if you smoked one cigarette. Did you know that? So they forbid smoking one cigarette at night because it cuts your vision. So the pilot wanted to live, so at night he didn't smoke. When you show people movies, you don't say no to tobacco. You show a guy dying of lung cancer, real pictures, and you show normal lung tissue, it stretches. But if you smoke a long time, your lungs turn black, and when you pull on it tears. So you show guys in hospitals, real movies, trying to breathe after they've been smoking for 20 years. You show that, that's the best way to tell people not to smoke. But if you tell people not to smoke, they go on and smoke anyway because you're addicted. Did you know that Coca-Cola used to put drugs in it to addict you to Coca-Cola?
No, I know.
He knows, he's the early guy. Anybody else know?
Yeah.
Okay. So that means they don't give a shit about you. Isn't that what that means? They don't care about you.
To sell.
And
So
also you can
I'm
buy
trying to
cigarettes
tell you
out there, so.
that the world I'm talking about cares about you. It's very different. You have to go out and talk to other people. If you do nothing, nothing will happen.